everybody. We are live and welcome to the Saturday session. I have a special guest joining me today, and I've known Suzanne for a little bit of time, and I've gotten a chance to meet her over several Zoom sessions in the past, and I'm excited for today's session because she's going to teach us some techniques here. So I'm going to learn how to become a supermodel. That's my goal today, and I think I have the right guest with us, but. My guest today, she's actually joining us from Los Angeles. So I do appreciate you being with us this evening. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone that's joined and let us know who you are. And can you tell us a little bit about your experience in the industry and what it is that you've done, and kind of give us a brief story of how it all got started?
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Suzanne Von Schaack. It's so nice to be here with you. Yeah, I've become kind of an icon in this business now. I've been in it so long. I started, I'm a farm girl from Wisconsin, a town of 2,000 people. And my dad was a farmer, and he had a couple farms, and then he also was a builder. He built barns for a living. So, I'm like the perfect example of somebody that you think would never get out of a small town and become a top model. And now I produce my own films and star in them. And I've won tellies, which are there for non-broadcast. Tellies are like Oscars. They're very well recognized in the business for short films. So I'm a perfect example of somebody that used to show beef cattle and had little cropped short hair and didn't know how to dress. And I became a superstar model in New York, and I was discovered by Givenchy. He came to New York. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. I went to college, and while I was in college, I got very sick because I didn't know that I was born with a mitral valve problem in my heart. And it's never really done anything to my life. It flagellates when you drink Coca-Cola, caffeine, things like that. But it did hospitalize me. And so I decided, well, maybe I don't want to go to college. Maybe I'm not cut out for, the late night studying and this and that and trying to stay up and drinking coffee, and that's not good for me. And so I was looking in the newspaper, and I saw Beautiful People Modeling School. I mean, this is almost, incredible that anybody would have a modeling school called Beautiful People. But,
I love it.
It's kind of laughable, but it's now called Jared's, and it's in Madison, Wisconsin. The school still exists.
Wow.
The lady who ran it, of course, sold it, and then they changed the name. But so I went to Beautiful People Modeling School, and then I ended up teaching there. And then I decided to get a couple of my girlfriends, and I was too afraid to go to New York. So I went to Florida first. And then I went to a modeling school in Florida that they don't exist anymore either. It was a John Robert Powers school. And they were going to a convention in New York called the Model Association of America, which just it just came back again. It's a nonprofit. And I went to that at the Waldorf Astoria, and I am old enough to know I knew Wilhelmina, Jerry, and Eileen Ford. These are people now, when you hear about Wilhelmina, it's a franchise. Ford Agency is a franchise. But originally, way back in the day, 40 some years ago, they were real people who started small agencies that became very big and became well known. And once they passed away, their children franchised them. So there's a Wilhelmina here in LA. There's a Ford in LA. They're in Miami. They're all, these agencies are all over the place. But like I said, I've lived long enough that I actually knew those people, and they were wonderful people. And I was with Eileen and Jerry for a while, and I was also with Wilhelmina. So when I was with Wilhelmina, in those days, you had a print agency and then you had a runway agency. They didn't do everything together. Today, now they do everything together. They kind of go across the board. But Wilhelmina kept saying, you know, Suzanne, you really need to go to Europe and get your book together, and that you will work a lot more. And, you know, again, I was kind of afraid to go to New York or go to Europe, just like I was afraid to go to New York. So what happened was there was an interview in New York where Hubert Givenchy was going to interview girls to go to Paris for his fashion show and for his couture show. So he was looking to actually, you know, find girls that kind of stimulated his imagination for color and hot style and all of that, so he could drape fabrics and create on them. So there had to be over 100 girls there, and everybody was dressed in black, and everybody, you know, looked the model part. And I took special attention to my hair and my makeup and da-da-da-da. And he was a very tall man. He was like 6'5", 6'6".
Wow.
He was very tall. Excuse me. Hold on just one second. Anyway, he came out, and this is, I learned later when I went to Paris that this is how they do it in Europe. Here, they'll take the time to look through your portfolio or ask you to walk or whatever, or they'll look through and then they'll just say, thank you very much. Nope. In Europe, they come out, they look over the sea of models, and they go, you stay, the rest leave. Just like that. And I was standing there and I thought, I think he pointed at me, but I'm not sure. You know, it could have been this one or that one. And I said, excuse me, did you mean me? Oui. And those were the first words I learned in French. You know, was yes. And I couldn't believe it. There were only like 6 of us. Wow. That he wanted, you know, to stay. So the next thing I knew, you know, I was preparing to go to Paris and for the couture collections. And then I went to the house of Givenchy, which was near the Eiffel Tower. It was just off of the Arc of Triumph, you know, it was just off of that, and kind of near the Georges V Hotel. And the culture is beautiful. There's no place like the United States of America. I have to say, you know, they don't have central heating and all this other stuff. You know, the beautiful old buildings. It was, what an experience. So I think it was the next 3 or 4 years, I spent 6 weeks in New York, 6 weeks in Europe, back and forth, until I really got burned out. I worked from the time I would get off the plane until you do the shows during the day, you would do the shooting at night. You did the photos at night because they didn't want to do photos prior to showing the collection because people steal and copy. Right. And so the designers are very closed about showing their, you know, publishing any of their pictures or the pictures getting seen, and then somebody copies their collection. So you work day and night. And when you were a popular model, you know, that's what you did. And it just happened for me. And it happened for me because, number one, the biggest designer in the world, Givenchy, personally chose me, and then had me open the show and close the show. Those are the 2 most important places to work in any designer show. Usually you get one or the other, but he had me do both. He had me open the show with one poodle that he had standard poodles. So I walked down with the standard poodle, and then when I closed the show, I just had on this huge gown that I couldn't have any dog, and it was a lot of turning and everything. It made me a star like overnight. And then every designer wanted to use me, you know, because he was the top designer. Now, I want to tell you, 40 years later, last year in 2024, the same experience happened to me at my age now. I mean, I'm not young like I was, that I'm telling you about when Givenchy discovered me, but
Right.
I produce fashion shows now. I transferred into doing other things, and since I've transferred into doing other things, this is going to be funny because I now have CESD who is setting up a meeting with me to be a model again at this 40 years later. I never thought I would do that again. I thought I'd produce fashion shows, teach other models, and now they want me to come back and model again. It's
Wow.
insane. So it's come like full circle, but let me tell you how that happened. So since I produce shows, I was producing a show in Orange County for at the museum. They have a beautiful Bowers Museum down there. It's gorgeous, and the grounds are beautiful. And so I was doing a fundraiser show, and Michael Cinco, who is now like Givenchy was, Michael Cinco is from Dubai, and he is the biggest and most uh, so well known. Everybody knows he shows in Paris, he shows here, he shows there, and his clothes are impeccable. They're like art, is what they are. Beautiful art. And
Right.
so I'm there, I come like I look now, and I was dressed up and I went to we had done an audition for models where we put them on video, and then we sent the video to Dubai for him to look at and choose the models that he liked. So now he's in LA, downtown LA, and I go to because all the girls are going to be there, and I have a meeting with all the tech people for putting the show together. And I walk I walk off the elevator from the parking area and I walk in and I know what he looks like because I look him up, and I always, which is something you guys should always do, you should always Google whoever you're going to meet. Hopefully you all Googled me before you ever, if you knew my name, you should have Googled me before you even came online here so that you could ask me specific questions. Very smart to do this, whenever you're going to meet somebody in the business. So anyway, I Googled, I knew what he looked like, I knew everything about him, and I walk in and I can see his eyes following me, following me, following me. I go over and I said, "Hi, are you Michael Cinco?" And he said, "Yes, I am." And I said, "Well, I'm Suzanne Von Schaack. It's so nice to meet you. I'm the producer of the show." And he looks at me, and he looks me up and down. And he said, "You used to be a model, didn't you?" I said, "Yes, I did." I said, I was discovered by Givenchy. And he goes, "I have something I want you to wear in my show. You've really kept your body and everything together." I said, "I can't do that." I said, "I've had a hip replacement. I don't even walk in high heels anymore. I can't do that." And he said, "Oh, yes, you are." I said, I'm producing the show, Michael. I'm producing the show. I'm going to be on headsets, making everything happen and doing the rehearsals. I can't do that. I'm working for our client. I'm going to talk to the client. It was the same. It was like being chosen all over again. I mean, unbelievable. And he talked to my client, and the client said, "Okay." He had me close the show.
Wow.
And it was this big, huge cape. It was all done in gold, painted on the back, and a very tight sequin dress that was slit all the way up. And he said, "Just find some low shoes." And he said, "And wear dark stockings." And he said, "Don't worry, you're tall enough. It won't matter." I'm going, my goodness, what is happening? Well, then that picture came out and went on my social media. Then I had a panel thing talking about modeling, and a designer was there, and she came over to me after I talked with the panel, and she asked me if I'd walk in LA Fashion Week for her. And then CESD, follows me, and they saw the pictures from Michael Cinco, and they called me and said, "Suzanne, maybe you should come back and model again." So I have an appointment in the beginning of February.
Nice.
So
That's
this,
amazing.
I guess what I'm kind of telling you a story about my career is that at this juncture, there's no reason why you can't do this business forever. Back in the old days, by the time you were 30, you just were washed up. It would be like a baseball player or a football player. You know, they're on to the next. That isn't true anymore. You can work for as long as you want to. There's lifestyle modeling. There's all different types of modeling that you can do. And the truth is that the audience today, you know, there are a lot of people who are baby boomers who have all the money, and it's all about marketing. So you want to market to the people who are the biggest group of people, you know, consumers in the industry who are buying the jewelry and the clothes and have the money to do it and are buying the cars. And so it's all about marketing.
Well, I love that story. It's all about networking as well, right? I mean, that's really kind of a key point I'm taking away from both of your stories. I try to tell people, you know, who are looking to break into this industry that no matter where you're at and what you're a part of, always be friendly and always be trying to make connections. So if you're in a small little project, a small runway show, you know, make friends with everybody that's there. And obviously, if Givenchy's there, you should meet him as well. But you know, make friends because you never know where those connections can lead.
Right. It's true. And some of it is timing, you know, some of it is just timing. And of course, I did have a big career. So, and you know, it with Givenchy and other designers as well. So it's also about the way you carry yourself. You know, I don't walk in, when I produce a show, I walk in looking like a model myself, even though I'm older than the girls that are going to be working. But I put myself together. I've kept my body together. You know, I keep my skin, you know, together. I keep my hair from the gray from showing, you know, all of these things. Um, but, you know, it's discipline. And so the way you carry yourself, you know, where you're comfortable inside your own skin and that you actually have presence. People like that that design and are into art, and they see it, and when they see it, it becomes like a light bulb of, you know, and it just sort of fits, and then the ball just keeps rolling. It's kind of interesting. But you know, another thing that I have done is I did write a book during COVID. And this book has been very successful. It's called Modeling Success. You have the question, I have the answer. And I hope that you guys have a lot of questions for me, because I do have a lot of answers that I can give you. This book is available on Amazon. It's a handbook, so that it kind of tells you how to get from A to Z. So how to get into the business, how to get an agent, what do you carry in your shoe bag, you know, or your model bag. How are you supposed to act on set? What different types of modeling there are. It has everything in it. So if you're interested, this is on Amazon. And it's something I had wanted to do for a long time, and I never had time. And then COVID hit, and I went, well, I have all the time in the world now. I'm just going to sit home and write this book.
Nice.
Right?
And so we can get that on Amazon, but can we also get it on your website as well?
I don't sell it off my website, and I'll tell you why. When I do events, which I do events at conventions and things like that, they'll have me come, and I do a speaking engagement, and then I'll do a book signing. I discount it then. And I have quite a few books here, but it's the shipping. So, you know, the book sells for $27, but if I were to have it shipped here and then I've got to send it out, it can be anywhere from $7 to $12 of shipping. And it just doesn't make sense. Everybody has Amazon Prime, and they don't have to pay for shipping. Or if they get it from Amazon, it's cheaper than me sending it out. So I don't get in the business of doing that. That's why Amazon is so it's so great to, publish your book, to self-publish, because they take care of all the shipping and the printing and everything else.
Nice. Very good. Well, going back to your story, I'm curious. I want to dive deeper a little bit more. I know that you
Okay.
said you were going to college, and you were, before that, of course, you were raised on the farm around the animals.
Uh-huh.
How did your parents feel when you decided to attend this modeling school and maybe forego college? Was there a transition period there? Were they supportive? Was there any sort of pushback from them? How did that work?
Well, my dad was always in his overhauls, like a farmer, right? My mother, on the other hand, which is probably where I got this from, my mother, for Easter and all of that, she'd get all dressed up. She also was a seamstress, and they used to wear hats back in the day, and she would have a stone marten, or those furs that with the clip that, right? So here's my dad. My dad would get dressed up when he had to, but my dad was just, he came from a farm, with all of his brothers. They were raised on a farm. And my mother was raised in a small town, but my mother was very sophisticated and loved clothes and dressed up, and, and they were like two opposites in a way. They got along great. They were married almost, I don't know, over 60 years, I think.
Wow.
But I think I got the whole thing of putting on makeup, and my mother never went anywhere without her makeup. And this was even in a small town. She always had every morning she put her makeup on, And so when this happened, to answer your question, and I said, maybe I'd like to do this. I always look on TV and I see different people and I go, I'd like to do that. I would see the Academy Awards, and I go, I wonder if I could ever do something like that. I mean, I was just like, young. And this was even before I went to college. I would go, wow, what a life that would be. I would just, and kind of revel in it. And then also the Miss America pageants and all of that. You're watching TV and you're just, it's kind of a dream, but you don't really, could that apply to me? Right? So I'll tell you something that's funny. When I went to New York, finally, when I got there, because when I went from Florida to New York for the convention, I showed up and I looked around, and Janice Dickinson went to the same convention, and her mother was my chaperone, and her sister was also there. And her mother was my chaperone until my mom could get to New York, because she couldn't get to New York for the whole week. She came on the weekend for when the fashion show, when you did the competitions, right? And so here was Janice Dickinson and look at what Janice Dickinson has had in it, also an incredible career. Right. But she came from Florida, and we didn't even know we were making history at the time. We didn't even know that Wilhelmina or Eileen Ford or Stuart Cowley or any of these agents were just agents. We didn't. Right. Right. It's weird when you look back and now that they're like famous, right?
Iconic, right?
Yeah, very iconic. So I looked around at everybody, and at the convention, it wasn't too bad because everybody was kind of from other places. But when I walked in front of Henry Bendel and Bonwit Teller, and I looked at myself, I was wearing Sears and Roebuck clothes and clothes that my mother had made me. That made, in
Right.
Wisconsin, they were perfectly fine. But I was too afraid to go into those stores because I looked at remember this shot. It's like a shot from a movie. I was looking in the windows, and I was watching the ladies that were going in, and they were all dressed and coiffed and, put together, even the younger ones. And I looked at myself in the window, like where they had designs in the window, right? And I looked in there and I could see, I looked at myself while I was dressed and I turned around and I go, I can't even go in the store. I'm not appropriately dressed to go into